In my experience, there's one thing that really makes a huge difference between the really great sales organizations and those who are struggling to get there. One thing that really sets them apart. And what is that one thing? It's that they have a really effective sales coaches. We call them sales managers, but they're great at coaching, reinforcing, and helping their salespeople grow. This week's podcast, a number of great tips and great ideas about the process of sales coaching. This is Sales Untraining, a very different kind of sales podcast. 3 out of 4 salespeople are failing. They're falling short of their revenue. Why doesn't sales training work? That's what this sales podcast is about. It's your weekly sales strategy guide designed to rewire your sales brain. I like to welcome in an expert. His name is Dave Kurlan, and Dave is legendary, is all I can say. He's the founder of Objective Management Group. I don't think sales training works. It's a really interesting. It's interesting for us to say when we're in the business of training salespeople, but the average company brings in a new salesperson, Dave. They're going to spend 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on the complexity of the products and the product lines, teaching salespeople about products, and they're going to call that sales training, right? But what happens is we get a whole bunch of people who run out and push products, which is not selling at all.
It's not selling at all.
What would you do differently?
Well, I don't think it matters whether it's 4 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks. Not all of that onboarding orientation time is training. Some of it has to be mastery of the market that we're selling into, or the vertical that we're selling into, or the audience that we need to talk to. Some of it has to be business acumen. We need to understand business problems and financial consequences. And then some of it has to be an education as to the company that these people are working for. How does our company work? How do we work? Who do you go to for help? Who's your support mechanism? What kind of coaching are you going to get? And then there's that piece that's going to be training. And while some product training would help me sell, what would help me sell more is if I understood the problems that we solve. What kind of potential problems might I be looking for and seeking to hear about that a prospect or an opportunity might be struggling with? And give me 10 examples of how that's played out in the past.
Right.
This company started talking about this problem, and it turned out that that wasn't the real problem. That was a symptom. The real problem was this other thing, and it was impacting the decision makers in this way, and it was costing them this kind of money, and they didn't even realize anything beyond the symptoms they initially reported. So based on all of that information, we strategically decided to present this solution at this cost, and understood what the competition was presenting them, which was going to be quite different than what we were recommending, but we were recommending it based on a conversation nobody else had, because we asked all these great questions and we won the business. And beyond winning the business, here is the application of our solution, and here's what they have to say about how we handled that from start to finish. That's what I would want to see a sales team trained on.
This 7% of all sales managers are considered to be effective at coaching, according to over 2.3 million assessments done by Objective Management Group. 63%, almost 2 out of 3 sales managers weak. Yeah, and the bottom percentiles, and they shouldn't even be in sales management. I mean, think about that. What's the typical scenario for promotion into sales management? Well, I know how we did it. I bet it's the same as the way you do it. You look at your best salespeople and you say, this person knows how to sell. They're going to be a great sales manager. Well, no, not exactly. Can they learn? Sure. But do we test them? Do we assess their capabilities? Do we develop those habits that need to be strengthened in order to be good? Primarily, obviously, coaching salespeople. Have you ever noticed that great players in sports rarely make great coaches? No, I mean, it's rare. Think of Major League Baseball, Major League Basketball, NBA. Look at the NFL. Look at college sports, football, basketball. The greatest coaches are often pedestrian players, maybe slightly above average. Oh, it happens, but it's rare. The Hall of Fame player who becomes a Hall of Fame coach or a championship winning coach in the National Football League has happened exactly one time. Extra credit if you know who it is. A Hall of Fame player who went on to win a Super Bowl. Mike Ditka, Chicago Bears. That's it. That's our data set. NBA, not much better. Major League Baseball, not so good at all. In fact, the best players typically make bad coaches. Typically. Why? You got to ask yourself why. Here's some ideas. A lot of research on this, but what it says is they're impatient. They typically don't know why they're good at what they do. They just do it. Got great work ethic, great instincts, great intuition. The game comes to them. They just know how. They don't have a lot of patience trying to figure out why you're not good at it. In fact, they get frustrated with it. What is wrong with you? And if you don't have the same intensity and passion and desire that they do, they don't want to waste time with you. Boy, I wish it was that easy in the real world, but not every salesperson that you hire is going to be Michael Jordan. No, you're actually going to have to earn your pay. You're going to have to develop, coach people to improvement. Your salespeople are practicing on your prospects, on your customers. They're practicing there because if you're not working with them, if you're not role play practicing, if you're not taking them through actual practice calls, you have no idea what they're doing. And let me assure you, they're never going to say, wow, I kind of stink at this, right? I'm not that good on the prospecting side. I don't know how to open a call. Boy, when they ask some questions, I get flustered. You're going to get none of that. You're going to get a lot of red roses, sunshine. It's all good. Things are going well. Look at my CRM report. I've got $1 billion ready. Yes, of course you do. That's why you're 80% of plan. How do you coach if you don't know what needs to be coached? Let me tell you what happens typically. Someone's 80% of plan, I'm going to make an assumption I know what's going on. Well, they're not asking for the order, so they need to work on closing, or they're not handling objections well, or maybe the margins are compressing and we're not selling value. Hey, you need to sell value. That's not coaching. Telling someone what they need to do or what to do is not coaching. And if you're not out there live watching them do it, they are not going to admit what they're doing wrong. I mean, why would they? I mean, we're all human beings. We don't want to say, hey, yeah, I kind of stink at this. It's not going to work that way. And so the one thing that I consistently see sales leaders do is they're spending way too much time behind a computer monitor at a desk and not nearly enough time involved with them actually making calls that matter. So what should you be doing? Even if you're on the floor looking at some calls, hearing some calls, reviewing some recordings, what should you be doing? Well, one of the things you need to be talking about is what happens before the call. When I would work in the field with a salesperson, we'd pull in the parking lot and they'd get ready to get out. Stop, pause. Why are we here? I mean, at first they'd look at me like, I'm sorry, excuse me, what? Why are we here? Well, Kelly, we're going in to see Joe and, we're going to sell something. That's your objective, to sell something. Well, I mean, eventually, okay, so what's the objective of this call? Every call is different. A brand new prospecting call, a discovery call, a follow-up call, a presentation call, all kinds of different types of calls. I want to know what the objective is. In 1984, I worked for a guy that came out and worked with me on a regular basis when I knew zero. I did not know anything about selling. I mean, I was an open book. And that's where I learned this. He would get me to the door and he'd go, okay, stop. What's our primary objective? And after a while, I finally figured out what he was asking for. And then he would go, okay, what's your secondary objective? Say what? Secondary objective? And he'd walk me through that. And then he had the, what happens if it all goes to crap objective? I'm like, okay, I'll bite. What does that mean? Have you ever been on a call where the guy you're supposed to meet, the prospect, the customer, the individual you're meeting with, can't make it, doesn't show up, for some reason is detained? Listen, it costs a lot of money to make a sales call. What are you going to do then? He forced me to think through the process of being prepared. Now that's coaching. I'm Kelly Riggs, host of the Sales Untraining Podcast. A couple of quick questions for you. Do you hire salespeople? Is sales turnover far too high in your organization? Do you struggle to find A players for your sales team? Well, these are very common questions, and there is a better way to hire. I'm a partner with Objective Management Group, OMG, and they have been assessing sales candidates for over 30 years. In fact, they've assessed over 2.5 million salespeople. Now, this is a very different type of assessment. First thing out of your mind is it another behavioral assessment? Is it a psychometric tool? Is it a personality quiz? No, nothing like that. It is based on 21 very specific sales competencies. And you need to listen to this. This is crazy. It is 91% predictive of sales performance. That's right, 91% predictive. You can't even make a claim like that without the science behind it. Listen, if you struggle to find the right people, or if you just need a lot more help in the hiring process and making sure you're getting in front of the right people to hire, please email me, kelly@bizlockerroom.com. Oh, by the way, and you can absolutely try it for free, and it has a guarantee. kelly@bizlockerroom.com. Back to the show. What is coaching? How does it vary from training? Well, in my world, I distinguish between training and coaching. Training is when we give you those skills that you've never learned. When we begin to teach you something new, that's training. When you've never been exposed to it or just have a knowledge of it but have never seen how it exactly works, that's teaching, that's training, that's first time go round. But to get better, to improve, to refine, to get that last little bit of performance, typically I call that coaching. I played college football. Okay, retraction. I was on the team. I got a jersey. I had a number. I was in the program. I played just enough to get a letter, but to say that I played might be stretching the bounds of the definition a little bit, but I played enough to get a letter, and I got on the field some, and it was an experience. And I've had the opportunity to experience good and bad coaching. In fact, the last position coach I had was a dumpster fire. I mean, he was as bad as they get. But I've had some really good coaches, and if you've spent any time in team sports, you've probably experienced the same, good ones and bad ones. And we could get into that discussion of what constitutes a good coach and a bad coach. Think about it as we have this conversation. But let me tell you what coaching isn't. It isn't standing on the sidelines, yelling out to the player on the field saying, you need to do that better. You need to do more of this, and you need to do more of that. That's not what coaches do in the sports world, not the good ones. The good ones step out on the field and they help you get better. They show you exactly what you need to improve. They repeat it as often as is necessary. I played wide receiver in college. My coach didn't stand on the sideline and say, Riggs, you need to run that route better. Well, occasionally he did, but it's after he spent significant time explaining exactly how to run the route. Footwork, positioning, coming off the break, creating separation, getting your number to the quarterback so they can see the window where they need to throw. And if you can't do those things, if you can't get open, The coach will work with you to help you improve. And if you can't improve, then guess what? You're not going on the field and you might not even make the team, right? That's the way it works. But the coach is there to help you with the nuances, the things that make a difference, the things that help you change your performance and improvement. That's not what I see in the world of sales. What it sounds like in the world of sales is non-specific stuff. I mean, the stuff that passes for sales coaching is ridiculous. Listen, here's the sales coach talking to his salesperson. Listen, you're going to need to get focused. All right? I mean, I just don't feel like you've got your mind in the game. You're going to have to get focused. Okay. What does that look like exactly? Hey, you need to make more calls. You know, the numbers are clear. You need to make more calls. Really? Making more calls equals more sales automatically? No, I don't think so. The type of call, the quality of call, the right opportunity, the right decision maker, and on it goes, right? And so a lot of sales leaders, sales managers think that coaching is simply telling people where they need to improve. That's not coaching. The type of coaching we're talking about is the kind of coaching that's specific and helps people get better at what they do. And so you've got to be able to understand what makes a great salesperson, the process, the sales process, the planning, the development, the skills, the individual skills that you have to stack one on another in order to progress through that opportunity, ultimately getting the deal. Welcome, Graham Hawkins. He is founder of Sales Tribe. It is a digital enablement sales company, and he's got a worldwide following, does a phenomenal job. Graham, thanks for being here, man. There's one piece of this whole sales training mix that is, I think, grossly underappreciated by managers, by executives, by owners, by CEOs, and that's the role of the coach, the sales leader. Too many times we've pigeonholed that sales leader into an administrative post, and the real value of training can't be realized until someone comes alongside and actually helps people practice that. Why is that overlooked in your opinion?
Oh, look, there's a number of reasons I think it's overlooked, Kelly. Firstly, most sales leaders, I read some research recently that said that sales leaders, CROs, should spend about a third of their time recruiting and hiring, constant sales staff attrition that goes on. So a third of their time is done in that space. They should spend a third of their time in operations, running the day-to-day team and the business. And they should also spend a third of their time in coaching their team. But here's the thing that I find in my travels, in all the companies I talk to, when I put that model up and I ask them, how much time do you really spend coaching? It's well under 10% most of the time. So
absolutely,
for some reason, coaching gets pushed to one side, and it shouldn't. It should be the number one thing. In fact, one of my heroes to this day is Brent Adamson, who wrote The Challenger Sale with Matt Dixon.
Yes.
And those guys have done numerous articles on coaching. One that goes back a little while, I think it was a Harvard Business Review article, where they said, and I love this quote, "No other investment can create the uplift that coaching can." It's the number one thing that most organizations should be doing, and most are not.
Let me ask you this. I think this is another one of those things that is really escapes the attention of people because we don't really have a definition around it. It's like leadership. What is leadership? Ask 10 people, you get 10 answers. If I ask people what coaching is, they're like, oh, of course, I coach all the time. Tell me what that looks like. And turns out it has nothing to do with coaching. So how would you define coaching? What does that look like in the real world?
You're spot on. Coaching is the opposite of what most people think they're doing. Most people are doing what I call directing. I say to sales leaders, are you coaching? They all say yes. I say, give me an example. They tell me what they do. And I say, so you're having one-to-ones once a week with each of your team members? Yes. And how does that unfold? What does that session look like? Fundamentally, what they explain is that they direct their team. They say, Kelly, you should be doing this. Just do that. Just do this. Not coaching. That's the opposite of coaching. That's just telling the seller what they should do in a particular situation or circumstances. Coaching is a totally different approach. It's It's helping the seller start to become self-sufficient. It's understanding what drives each individual and how you can start to set up a culture and an environment where they can be successful. That's the essence of coaching. It's not about telling them what they should do.
Sales training it's got some problems. You look at the evidence and we can figure all that out. But man, we've got a guy today that's really going to help us figure some things out. He's Jeff Bajorek, and a good friend, a good guy, and he's got his own podcast, Rethink the Way You Sell. He's written a couple of books. There's a lot of reasons why salespeople struggle. Some are just poorly trained. They're just not capable. Mm-hmm. Some, sadly, are lazy, shouldn't be in the industry or the profession anyway. Some lack some of that passion that gets instilled from success and a good sales leader and all that. Some, the difficulty, the resistance, the friction that they have to put up with, it wears them down and they quit, again, a sales leader. And some obviously lack that belief. I mean, there's just so much to this dynamic. Do we need to do better training? Yes. Do we need to do better leading, coaching, developing, instilling that confidence? Jeff, that's exactly what you're getting at.
And it's incumbent upon the leader to create the space for their reps to succeed. And that doesn't mean throwing training at the problem. What it means more often than not is creating a vulnerable space for their team to be willing to admit what they feel they're lacking, and for them to be willing to admit that they don't have it all figured out. And once you've created that environment, now we can actually tell the truth. Because I don't care what you say, Kelly, the truth is undefeated, right? It always comes back around and we realize what is going on. So the more quickly and efficiently you can enable that space to tell the truth, now we can really talk about where we feel that resistance, where we feel we're being held back. Well, now that we know what the real problem is, we can address it. But just pretending, oh, my reps are lazy. I don't think there are very many lazy salespeople out there. You don't sign up for a high amount of variable compensation without a drive to earn it. But there are a lot of sales reps who appear lazy because they're uninspired or it's not the right fit. They lack that alignment, and that is a leadership issue. That is a leadership issue. We cannot keep pinning this on salespeople alone. The leader plays a role, and if you're abdicating that role, you're failing everybody. You're failing yourself, you're failing your company, you're failing your reps, you're failing your customers, you're failing your customers' customers, because we create results for our customers so they can create results from theirs. That is a failure. The leader has to wear it.
Pro tip, I've said it 2 or 3 times. If you hear yourself saying you need to, you're not coaching. You're doing it wrong. If you want me to make more calls, let's talk about what types of calls, why that's important, how you advance those calls. Give me a step 1, 2, 3. Creating clarity about direction is critically important. Working on specific skills in real time, and you know by now that I'm a big fan of role play for that specific reason. That's what enables people to get better. If you don't practice, you don't change habits. You can't simply tell people what to do and expect them to change their world, change their habits. First off, it is incredibly difficult to break an old habit. Here's what happens. They go into some scenario where they need to do something different. It's in their conscious mind. They're thinking about it. They know they need to do it differently. But as they start to stumble and struggle and stutter along. And so in order to save face and not look silly, they immediately revert back to that old habit. We've all done it. So why not practice until it becomes an unconscious exercise? I can do it without thinking, and that way I can proceed through the call, then analyze it after the call to see where I need to get better. And then the third thing you really need to think hard about is how much time are you spending with these people in the real world? Are you doing calls, sales calls with them? You've got to help people shape a path. And many times you've got to get on that path with them. And yes, hold their hand for a little while. It's not demeaning. We're not saying, I hear this all the time from managers. Well, they should know how to do that. Okay, but if they don't, Is that your fallback position? Well, go back to number one. They should know how to do it. No, your job as the sales coach, sales leader, sales manager is to help them improve their performance. I mean, again, it'd be really nice if all we had to do was sit back and go hire 5 or 6 top level, high performance, top 6% salespeople and sit back and, watch the funnel and watch it happen. Well, if you get that job, good for you. It doesn't exist, but if you find it, I'd love to hear about it. Any sales leader who has been great in their role will tell you it's a journey, it's a lot of work, and when you get good people, you're going to lose them because they're going to promote out of your department. Right? You should be trying to train, coach, develop your replacement all the time. When your people are that good, then they're going to attract more A players. And if you get promoted, hopefully, and you move up the ladder or move out to a new place or opportunity, you've got your replacement ready to go. But when you've got 3 or 4 people as good as you are in their jobs, they can do it without you. Life is very, very good. It's all a function of sales coaching. And one of the reasons why we need to rethink completely, rewire our sales brains, is sales training doesn't work when all you do is give them the information, give it to them one time, don't reinforce, practice, and develop those habits, and leave people to do to their own, hoping that it'll go well, because it won't. Thanks for joining me here on Sales and Training. I'll see you next time.
Sales Untraining is a production of Business Locker Room and Pod About It Productions. Music and editing by Doug Branson. To get more Kelly, visit bizlockerroom.com.